Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final 10th Salon, a bi-weekly online professional development workshop in the PlayUK series. For the last 5 months, we've been bringing together professionals from the UK and the Western Balkans, dealing with programming, gaming, VR, AR, animation, interactive and narrative design, and really hope that you enjoyed our program. During our last Salon, we'll be talking about design. We'll be talking about designing good UI UX with Anisa. Okay, I'm sorry, having a bit of technical difficulties. Anisa is a senior UI designer at Roll7 and founder of Limit Break, a mentorship program for underrepresented genders in the UK games industry. Anisa has worked on multiple titles across PC, console, and mobile platforms. And in this talk, she will highlight some key UI UX tips and tricks. This session will be a tiny bit different than what you're used to, but I think it's better to let Anisa explain all the details. Anisa, welcome to PlayUK Salon, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me here, and I'm very excited to talk to everybody today. Yeah, we are doing things a little bit different because, I just have to be different for some reason. I've actually prepared a pre-recorded talk. It's about 35 minutes long, and I put in a lot of effort into it, loads of jokes, pictures and things around. But yeah, it's basically because I am not sure if my internet will cut out or not. So I'm hoping that the video would be smooth and everybody can see it. I will be around right after for Q&A. So I'm here watching it with everybody. So yeah, I'll see, prepare your questions. I'm excited to start. It's been a journey to get here.
Awesome. We're also excited, to have you here and to hear more about your work and also to see this work of art that you've been preparing for hours. Cool. Yes, so please remember to ask your questions in the Q&A box as Anisa will be joining us for the Q&A, for the live Q&A session. Okay, let's start.
User interfaces and experiences in video games development. For today's talk, I'll be covering 4 main points. The first one is who are you and I, the design process, tips and tricks, and my favorite, friendship is magic. But first, a little bit about me. Hi, I am Anisa Sanusi, and I am currently a senior UI designer at Roll7, and UI design is my passion. I have worked in the industry for about 9 years now, and I've worked on roughly 15 titles in that time, anywhere from just the pitching stage and all the way up until release and live ops, and even some cancelled titles. Rest in peace, buddies. Being around for this long, I've been lucky enough to work on a bunch of different platforms, like the PS Vita and PC, and for a while, a lot of mobile games.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys.
But currently, I'm on a cross-platform original IP slated for next-gen consoles, which means I get to design for controllers again.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
The teams I've worked on have ranged from a small studio of 12 people, and I'm the only UI UX person, up to a company of, 500 people, and I'm in a team of several UI or UX specialists, including programmers. And within each job, there are varying degrees of expectations on what I'm supposed to do. I mean, biggest difference, I'd say, when you're working solo instead of in a team, if something's then it's your own fault and you can't blame nobody else, so just then fix it. So anyway, the funny thing about UX, it's both a philosophy and a craft. So in a way, anybody could do it, right? So everybody should do it, right? Who are you and I? Defining your role and responsibilities. Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit existential here. Like, it's difficult for me to talk about UIX because it's such a nebulous role. There's a lot of variables at play, like how big is your studio, how big is your team, what are you making, are the people involved full-time or contracted, are you part of the design team, are you part of the art team? Like, it's a lot, right? But see, bigger teams usually have the luxury of specialization. This is why AAA is so, detailed and specific in everything that they do, because you have a whole ass person doing just the one thing for like 3 years. Obviously, that thing's going to be very high quality, right? So due to the nature of smaller teams blurring the roles into one another, it's really important to establish clear responsibilities with the team early on, like from the start. Smaller teams definitely iterate faster, and the UI UX person will most likely be like overworked and spread really thin, supporting multiple features at different stages of its life cycle. I do have a tip for this, which is called assigning people as owners, stakeholders, and gatekeepers, but a little bit more on that later. Basically, you are not a unicorn, no matter how much you wish you are. A unicorn is someone who does it all. UI design, UX design, user research, game design, animation, code, blah, 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 blah. Like, no. That's a one-way ticket to Imposter Syndrome City in Burnout Paradise. You do not need that kind of pressure on you. Yes, you can wear multiple hats, but you're not meant to wear all of them. Have this conversation with your team really early. Let it be at the conception of your studio or at the point when you're interviewing for one. You know, the worst experience I've had is always when me or my boss or my colleagues don't know what my job is, and our expectations are not aligned. That's where a lot of conflict comes from. So have some clarity from the get-go. Defining who you are is only half of the coin. The other half is defining your process. The design process, finding what suits you and your game. If you want better results, then forget about setting goals. Focus on your system instead. This is a really good quote from one of my favorite books called Atomic Habits. It's about building up habits that will stick with you for life. Results have very little to do with the goals that you set and nearly everything to do with the systems that you follow. Like, for example, if you're a coach, your goal might be to win a championship. So your system is the way you recruit players, manage your assistant coaches, and conduct your practice. And if you're a musician, your goal might be to play a new piece. So your system is how often you practice, how you break down and tackle difficult measures, and your method of receiving feedback from your instructor, right? But what if you're a game developer? Your goal might be to build a good game. Your system is how you test game ideas, iterate on them, and validate your ideas. Does that sound familiar? Because that's basically what UI and UX is. So why is it the way you work any different from the very thing that you're creating? I'm just getting comfortable here. We can sum up the design process like this. Defining core pillars, going down ideation and researching, designing, concepting, and prototyping. You test and iterate that. And if it's all okay, you implement it. And if that's all okay, test and iterate again and again and again. And then finally, maybe you ship it. Maybe. Okay, this is really important to set out from the get-go. Decide on what your core pillars are of your game. You can have different core pillars for several situations, but in your case, as the person who is in between art and design, you want to be clear on what is a design pillar and what is an art and visual pillar. These values function as a high-level view of the game to spot issues across different features. You're going to be doing a lot of screens and doing a lot of different situations, but you want to make sure that each one of those is cohesive. For example, let's say your game has 3 pillars, which is light fantasy, humorous, and optimistic. So these are these are values. These aren't like strict things, like let's say, it has to be blue. I mean, that could be one of your style guides things where, your main theme is blue or whatever. But does the color blue, show optimism? Is it light fantasy? Up to you to decide. Is it on brand or not? If all of these core pillars are decided from the start and everybody's on board, then you should always go back to refer to it to make sure everything that you create afterwards follow that. When you're a UI UX person, you'd want to have a really good design system set in place. A design system is a collection of reusable components guided by clear standards that can be assembled together to build any number of applications. This is great. Like if you just Google the word design systems, there's going to be loads of tutorials on YouTube or on Google, especially from the tech industry. But basically, what you want in video games is like to create a design system that is easily updatable. How deep it is or how detailed it is completely up to you, because depending on your game, you might have 4 years to make it. Some games, you have literally 6 months. I don't know why you're doing that to yourself. Oh my God. Really, the UI will change a lot and you will iterate a lot. Like, a lot. So when you have a design system set in place, you can abstract from it a style guide. A design system is meant to be like a living document that you expect to slowly mold and change during the course of development, whereas a style guide acts a bit more of a snapshot of whatever people agreed the product should look at that point. If you want to learn more about the best way to document your work that is purposefully useful to other people on your team, I highly suggest watching this talk by Liz England on the GDC YouTube channel. You want documentation where people can act on them. So you, as the UI UX designer, will use these documents to make consistent design decisions. You might need a different document during handover to your engineers, which will cover more about behavior and different what-if states. Create documents based on who's using it. Once you're in a good place where you have all of your design building blocks ready, like pieces of Lego, and you're wireframing your screens, this is a really good place to go through the 10 design heuristics by Jacob Nielsen. Heuristic evaluation is a method for finding usability problems in your UI, thereby making them more available and solvable as part of the iterative design process. If your design passes all of these checks earlier in the process, then there's less chances of you fixing a design problem that's already implemented in engine. So in layman terms, you're preemptively making sure it's usable. That basically covers like the first half of the design process. Like in the second half, when you're involving a lot more people in it, you should have a good team system. So on a team system, you can try this method. This works well with smaller teams where people's roles are a little bit blurry. You can appoint specific owners, stakeholders, and gatekeepers for any given task or feature. Let's use an example. You need to create a level select screen. You, as the UI UX person, will be the owner because this is ultimately like a huge piece of UI. So you own this task and you see it from wireframing to designing to implementation. Stakeholders are everyone else involved in supporting you to get this task done, like a programmer. It's important to assign at least one person to this because this is really helpful if your team doesn't have a dedicated programmer, as you'll know you're working with who for which feature and when, and you might need another artist with you. So this could be a 3D artist, a concept artist, or a tech artist. This depends on how fancy your screen is, right? So only you know what you need for that screen. Do you need a 3D artist to supply you with a model? Do you need a concept artist to draw you some pretty things? Or do you need some shader support? And maybe also a third person could be a sound designer because they do the bleeps and the bloops. Lastly, and I would say quite important, this is very important, is the gatekeeper. This is a very important role because, especially if you're in a small team and it's like one of those
flat hierarchy teams.
Ultimately, when your design or implementation needs reviewing, this is the person who okays it. This can be anyone in a lead or director role, so a creative director, design director, basically whoever that is checking if what you have created satisfies the core pillars. Remember the thing? Sorry, core pillars? Yep, that's how you make a cohesive game. So to go over it again, owners, you own that task, you own that piece of feature. Stakeholders, you are part of that feature. You are there to support the owner to make sure their vision comes to life. Gatekeepers, you are there to make sure that the owners are doing it right and we are all going into the same direction. When these roles are established, you are more likely to know your responsibilities and what you can or cannot do and what if you need more support. Yeah? Nice. Okay, so you've got your design system ready and your team's go. Time to make your video game. So much pain coming. Tips and tricks. Pick what you need and keep the rest for later. Right, so I did the dirty work for you. And crowdsourced some top UI tips and tricks from the internet. I mean, where else are you going to get good advice, right? As usual, any advice on the internet, take it with a grain of salt. Like, take whatever that suits you, and maybe you can keep the rest for whenever you need it in the future project. I'm going to be doing these in quickfire because there's a lot of them, and let's just go through them really quickly. If there's anything you want to screenshot, just do it. First category, production. Right. Show and tell. Show your ideas and flows as early as possible with your stakeholders, even if it means crappy whiteboard drawings, because different roles have different mental models and they imagine things really differently until literally shown in front of them. So start showing things as soon as early. Sure. Speak to other disciplines. Learn to speak the language of every discipline on your small team. Your backend server might just be as good and insightful as game designers, and you learn a lot of things. Also, you don't need to learn how to code, but it's useful to know a little bit of how things work behind the scenes. So when you're setting up your screens, they are basically programmer friendly. Time estimates. Break down your task as much as you can and work with your producer to estimate the time needed for said feature. And then add more days. No more. Something will come up and like you're going to get sick, or there's something that you didn't think of, or I don't know, something will always come up. Pad them days up. Fresh new screens will take longer as you're building everything from scratch, whereas later on, newer screens will take less time as you've already built up a library of UI assets ready to go. Design sprint before implementation sprint. Stagger the pipeline so that design is before implementation. These two cannot be in the same sprint together, else your programmer will be wasting time and they'll be rushing you and it's not great and everyone's like, where is it done? And you're just like, shut up! I'm sorry. Bringing back a lot of memories. Don't break the build. It's a shared responsibility. Sometimes the coders and designers, they need to shove some early screens really quickly in there just to make sure it's functioning. And you come in a little bit later to reskin it to your shiny new design, but you still need a programmer to properly hook it up. In that in-between state of you checking in your changes and the coder picking it up, did you run it? Do you make sure it's not like breaking anything that's already in the game? Right, so to avoid this, if a screen already exists somewhere in the game, sometimes the safest way to do it is just to duplicate that screen, reskin that, and then pass it on to your coder so that when everyone else is working on a game, like the game is still functioning, nothing's breaking, and the coder can safely remove hookups from the old screen and then put it onto the new screen, all right? Can you guess I actually did this one time and it felt really bad. UI design. Name your files, your layers, have a clear folder structure. This is true for any discipline, but basically make it easier for someone else to find your shit. Like it's a collaboration, it's not just all you in here, it's all there in the screen. This is so important. You think this is like a given, but no, people forget this. Check your designs on device. If it's on mobile, send a screenshot to your phone. Can you tap the button with your sausage fingers? Can you read that 10-point font? Why is there a 10-point font in there? If you're on consoles, connect your PC to your living room TV and sit on your couch. Again, can you read it? It's easy to assume that it'll be fine, but looking at your computer screen is different from using your actual intended platforms, right? So, pro tip, if you use Figma or XD, they've got mirror apps that you can download on your phone, which mirror the design on your screen and on your phone. So you can live edit and you can actually see it moving on your screen as well. Depending on your resources, if you have a smaller phone to test your designs on, much better. Always, edge cases kind of thing. Design for the worst case scenario. Your strings will always end up longer. If you have like a list full of data, expect incomplete data, like what happens when nothing's there. a user hits a certain error at some point in your flow, what happens then? This is basically like all of the worst what if. Think about it and try to cover all of that straight up. Find a font that localizes to as many languages as possible. This is how you keep it consistent without having to find so many like other fonts that almost matches your main one. Like, you know, it's a little bit difficult, but just put in the effort to find those quickly, else you'll be paying so much for fonts. They're so expensive. Reusable and optimized assets. Yes, be smart with your assets. The more reusable they are, the better. This means you keep nice slicing things, keep it small, power of 2, creating the assets white, and then using the tinting in engine. I reuse almost everything. Like, if you can reuse it, good. Another kind of obvious, but I still think needs to be said, take a break. You've been staring at a design for too long. Take a break and do a different task. Come back to this with a fresh pair of eyes, and you will just see everything that's off with it. Honestly, staring at something for a whole day, you're just going to be blind to certain things. Stretch. UX design. Don't reinvent the wheel. Use established video game literacy patterns when designing features in well-known genres. They already exist. Just use it. Gamers know them. Users know them. You know them. Like, it's fine. You don't have to be so unique in everything. Users expect feedback. The game should echo back what they are doing. So a simple example, navigating a set of buttons and you can't go further in a direction, maybe play a small sound effect or animation to indicate that you can't do it. It's good to communicate to the player what they can or cannot do. Players tend to like try everything, see what happens, right? So you want to give them good feedback and they know exactly where they are and where they want to go. User flow. Instead of designing a list of individual features, think about the global onboarding experience for the player and the flow in which all of those are introduced. Have a script for the game and invest more on the parts where the players spend a lot of time on. This is why FTUI, which is short for First Time User Experience, is really important. Not everybody's going to finish your game, but 100% of your players will go through the FTUI. So make sure you got that slick and smooth so that they keep coming back. Right, this next tip is actually one of my favorites, which is called secretly console first. When designing for a cross-platform, always think about it from a gamepad point of view because they have less input systems in here. If you can navigate an entire screen using just the gamepad and buttons, then it'll automatically work for a mouse and keyboard. There's a really cool write-up about this, which is going to be linked right here, or screenshot it and Google it. Prototype your shit early on Figma, XD, or Sketch. It doesn't need to be on everything. Probably you definitely need it for like the bigger screens. And having a playable wireframe really helps deciding on your interaction design and understanding your flow. Show it to a programmer. You need to know your technical limitations. There's no point getting really ham in like all the fancy things and then programmers are like, nope, we can't do that. And you're just like, I spent a week on that. So show people things early. Chat to your narrative designer. Collab with them, again, as early as possible. Pointless for them to do any writing without seeing or feeling how the player will see it. They're also really good for ideas because they tend to think out of the box and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's really cool, I should do that. Not everything can be fixed with UI. Sometimes less UI is the answer. If you think a feature is better suited elsewhere, make a case for it. Could a piece of text be replaced with like an in-world 3D asset instead? Or could you use VFX or animation feedback? Literally not everything needs to be band-aided with more UI. As much as I love my job, like sometimes less UI is good. Next up, user research and testing. Very easy. Observe people. Observing people interact with your product is disproportionately powerful. Push through the discomfort and user test your wireframes. Research objective will be to learn about errors, misunderstandings, goals, UX challenges. Not do they think it's fun. That's a game designer question. Like, what is fun is like, but you as a UX person, your job is to make sure it's usable and they understand what's happening. How are you going to do this? Get scrappy. Sometimes you don't really need a user research lab to get like really quick qualitative data. Like bare minimum is 5 people to play through your wireframe and you'll spot the gaps in your design really quick. Do it using your wireframes, grab people from other parts of your company or even just like your family, your friends, literally anybody who hasn't seen your designs yet. You will spot the really early on issues really quick. Saying that, once it's in a really good enough position where it's like, it's a bit more hefty, pay testers. Free food exposure, see your game first, blah, blah. It's not going to attract your future everyday players to do your UI improvement studies. It's not going to reliably expose your UX issues either. For more user research stuff, you definitely want to follow Player Research and Games User Research, the special interest group. They got a lot of resources for this kind of stuff. Next is accessibility. Microsoft Xbox Accessibility Guidelines version 2.0. It's a long one. Designing around these guidelines or similar from the very beginning of production will save a lot of very, very painful reworking later down the road. Look this up on the internet. They've updated it recently. It's a very good start for anything. Get a consultant. Remember that anyone can research, but the more important the question to the business, the more important it is to reduce risk by bringing in a professional. So you'd want to pay an accessibility consultant to make sure the game is accessible. This one is pretty easy. Not just color. Never rely anything for just using just the color to convey important information. Use multiple routes of conveying said information. A lot of people are colorblind. And a lot of people just don't pay attention. So. Remapping key binding options. Players with accessibility issues will thank you, and you won't lose a ton of potential players who try your demo and find it unplayable because it's hard-coded to WASD and their keyboard has a completely different layout. Think global. Next up, UI text scaler. Let them make their UI text bigger. Nope, bigger than that. Bigger than that. Oh, yeah. Cool, and the final category, localization. Use the W with method. Using the W's to gauge just how much space is available for your text, your localizer can use it as a guide when translating. Different languages have different letter counts, and not giving them any guidance will lead to a lot of wasted time of like trial and error. Like, does this fit? Does that fit? It's longer, shorter? Just go with this. Give extra space. Yes, we've mentioned it before. Strings will always end up longer than you expect. So you want to preempt that with dynamic text, dynamic boxes, or just having loads of negative space. Double your negative space. Just double it. Translations are broken until confirmed not. This is the golden rule. If you cannot read a language, assume your current implementation of it is broken until someone who can read it tells you it's not broken. Yeah? Next one, hire professionals. Literally hire people whose literal job is to speak multiple languages and tell you just how bad your game is in their native language. And last and definitely not least, do not refer to languages with flags. Write the language's name out, preferably in its own script. They're languages, not countries. You're stepping into a lot of painful political stuff and it's really unnecessary. Don't use flags or icons. Write the language name. Oh my gosh, cool. That was a lot, huh? We're almost done, just a bit. Friendship is magic, communities and resources. The best way to get better at your craft is to be able to talk to other people who do what you do. It's really important to be able to talk to someone with a shared design vocabulary like yours to bounce ideas and share knowledge. So here are some communities and resources that could help you. First up, local UX meetups. They're usually smaller and you can get face time with some tech developers and people in the tech industry. My very first talk was in a small UX meetup. It was like 30 people in the room, and I learned a lot of how other industries work and fed that back into my game designs. So next is follow people on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Yeah. But really though, like a lot of really, really cool UI UX people are on Twitter, and they love to share the things that they know, the things that they do. It's Twitter though, but you know, sometimes it's all right. Next is find a mentor, locally or internationally. So a small plug, I actually run a mentorship program on the side. If there is such an initiative around your country or region, please, it's the best thing in the world. This goes both ways, yeah. If you are someone who are already experienced, your knowledge and skills are a huge value to people just still learning. And if you're still learning, a mentor helps. But of course, sometimes it's difficult to meet people. I know COVID's still a thing. I'm indoors. You can join online communities. These are two of my favorite Discords. Number one is the We Can Fix It in UI Discord. This is by invite only, so you can get in touch with them and get an invite to join them. And this is a Discord for UI UX for game developers specifically all over the world. It's such a great resource. Everybody's constantly sharing things and asking questions, and you're constantly learning things. It's an amazing community. They also have the We Can Fix It in UI.com website, where a lot of the resources I'm going to show later on is in there. It's also a good start. The next Discord is Design Buddies. This is a more general UI UX design kind of Discord. So you get lots of people from non-game backgrounds. They're also super active. They do a lot of talks. They do a lot of Zoom meetups and things like that. Like it's really active, and people are very enthusiastic in there as well. Next, books. People ask me, what kind of books can you read? These are just the staples. Like, go for it. The Design of Everyday Things. Don't Make Me Think. The Gamer's Brain, Games User Research, Inclusive Design for a Digital World, Pixel Perfect Precision, which is a PDF, but whatever, this is a book. Take a screenshot. Next up, video game references. So obviously, as UI UX designers, we have a job. We can't play every game in the world, but other people have. And thankfully, they record their gameplays. We have interface in-game, amazing resource for all the games. You can sort by genre, type, anything you can think of, and also game UI database. It's also up and coming and growing. Next is Can I Play That, which is specific to accessibility. Really good to see how other games do well or not in accessibility. And as a fallback, just search it on YouTube Let's Plays. Like, thank you, streamers. You've made a lot of game devs' lives both harder and easier. So next up, if you're feeling really good about yourself and you need to take yourself down a peg and just be really depressed, let's go on some design portfolio websites. Dribble, Behance, Carbon Made, ArtStation. I don't know how I'm still employed. Look at all these people who are so much better than me. Free stuff. Icons, non-project, flat icon. You don't need to create every single little thing yourself. Sometimes it's good to have a start. These are great resources. Next up, photography, Unsplash, Pexels. High quality, good vibes. And also, once you've done really good designs, slap that shit on something. Mockupworld.co, Anthony Boyd mockups. You want to see it on a phone but look pretty, but not your actual phone, because you know you're not a hand model. Well, I can be. Anyway, mockups, great, especially for interviews. Like if you have to do an art test, you put it on a mockup. Nice. Next is YouTube tutorials. Some of these you might already know, but my favorites, GMTK, Game Dev Guide, Extra Credits. They're more generic stuff about game development, but their UI topics are really spot on. I love them. Next, for design-related stuff, the Figma System Designs tutorial has been a godsend for me. Like, I learned so much from just following this through. Just try it at least once. There's 3 or 4 hours worth. And the Future YouTube channel talks a lot about design and career in design. Also, really good resource. Next is conferences. So I know we can't really go to any this year, but the 3 that you want to keep an eye on is the Games UX Summit, the GA Conference for Accessibility, and GUR Conference for User Research. Yep, so if you search for any of these 3 online, they will have previous talks uploaded on YouTube, and those are really good deep dives on specific titles and specific things. Highly suggest looking them up. And finally, my favorite part, talking about tools. There's so many like so and so versus so and so versus so and so, like, you know, articles online. Like, which one should you use? Okay, so let's talk about them really quickly. Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD. If you're asking me which one is the best, doesn't matter. Like, just use one of them, practice. So Sketch is the standard in the tech industry, but it's paid and Mac only. So a little bit of a barrier there. Adobe XD comes bundled in with Adobe CC. So if you already have that, that's great. But also it's kind of costly. And if you don't already subscribe to the entire package, it's an extra cost on you. Figma is browser-based and works both on PC and Mac. And most importantly, it's free. Functionally, I think they're all great, but to me, Figma is by far the most accessible, especially if you're new to the field and you want to practice. Like, literally just go for Figma. Whoa, boy! Oh my god, that was really long. Are you tired? I'm tired. Thanks for listening. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Studio Anisa, where I usually talk about how tired I am and I want a nap. But every so often I talk about UI, or, you know, I have a hot take on whatever the games industry is angry about this week. There's always something. I'd also like to thank the British Council, PlayUK, for inviting me to speak today. They have been an incredible team to work with. It's always an honor for me to be able to talk about UI. And good luck with your design journey. And remember, UI only works when you and I are together.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Okay, Anisa, thank you for sharing all this like practical advice in such a playful way. Thank you for all the memes. Thank you for all the puns. We have really enjoyed it. How are you feeling now that you've watched your video?
Oh my god, I'm dying. I'm literally dying.
Will you trust us? Let's just take a one deep breath. No need to die here. This was really great. I think, yeah, this was one of the funniest talks we've had on these salons. Really.
I'm glad you liked it at least. Because obviously I can't really see the audience from where I'm at right now. So I'm hoping people also like it. I'm not checking my social media, so I don't know if people are saying nice things or not. I hope they are.
Yeah, we'll definitely do our research and screenshot like all the wonderful things people are telling. But but really, like, thank you. This was such a fun way of conveying information on what you actually do as a UI UX designer in the games industry. Yeah, and also, yeah, since you're like still slightly embarrassed about the video, let me ask you like this question: like, how does it feel to be among the 100 most influential women in the UK games industry?
It's kind of, if you just watched all of that and then you think I'm a 100 influential woman in the industry, it is hilarious. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry, UK industry. Like, this is what is happening now. Okay, usually, like, I think I've been on 3 or 4 of these lists, and it's nice. It's nice to be acknowledged. It's nice to be said that, hey, you're doing something good. But ultimately, I just really like the job, and I hope I'm doing a good job of it. And it's one of those things that I want more people to come in, not just games, but also UI UX specifically, because it's a really nice job to do. And it's surprisingly difficult to find a really good UI UX candidate. Honestly, just talk to any recruiter to be like, you're like, you know, it's so difficult to find a good one. So yeah, if anyone's thinking of a career change, come to UI UX in video games.
Cool. And like what? Okay, well. Of course, like after watching your video, like everybody can everybody got like practical advice on how to actually become a better UI UX designer. Like, what made you a better UI UX designer? You know, like how do you like like what do you do like on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly basis to improve your the way you approach work?
So I think there's like two different ways to approach this question, because UI and UX are essentially two different things, right? And it comes as a bundle because typically in a lot of games companies you have like a 2-in-1 role where you do both UI and UX. You don't usually find a lot of people who only does UX, although that is changing. There's more of like UX specific roles, but like for UI it is literally just where you get your inspiration from. I always take my inspirations from outside of video games. I think if you talk to anyone in games, they'll tell you like don't just look at other games. I mean, they're good for references just to see who did what and how, but you want your influences to be from anything, literally anything, books, TV shows, movies, or just, I think honestly the best thing is to have a non-screen related hobby that usually feeds into your how you work creatively. And for UX, for that one specifically, I've had some interesting talks recently with a bunch of other UI UX people, and we all agree that the number one trait that is best for a UX designer is actually empathy, which is this is the one role that you kind of have to talk to everybody. You talk to designers, you talk to coders, you talk to artists, and you obviously it depends on what company you are and how big it is and how much you need to do, but you approach the job and the game holistically, and you end up kind of supporting everybody else. Good UI, good UX always you will only notice it if it's bad. You know, it's one of those, I want to say thankless jobs sometimes, because nobody's gonna be like, wow, that's great UI. They're just like, yes, this is a good game.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah, but as you said, like when it's good, nobody notices it. But when it's bad, people will notice it, like in a very vocal and angry way, usually.
Just mute them. It's fine.
Cool. Like so. Yeah. Regarding, let's talk about like game references, like for UI design and for like UX design. Like, what would you say are what would you say are the best like games references out there? Like, what would you say, like which games like have like the most like exciting UI or UX design?
If anyone has remotely like followed me long enough will know that my default answer to like what is a good UI is literally just Persona 5. That stupid company. Have you ever played a game that you just get really angry? You're just like, why did I not make this game? And then you're just like, why have I been in the industry? This is terrible. Yeah, Persona 5 makes me feel both good and bad things. I both hate it and love it.
Cool. And like regarding, yeah, since you worked on like multiple titles and across like every platform on every platform possible, like on of which of your work are you like most proud of? Like when you look back, like it doesn't have to be good, but like
I think video games is just pain and suffering. So I think all my games are equally painful.
Into the industry, we can't say it's all just like pain and suffering.
Okay, if I were to say like my favorite game to work on was actually Planet Coaster. So that was when I was with Frontier Developments, and that was that was the 500 strong people company. I think they're bigger than that now. But at the time, Planet Coaster it's a theme park simulation game. So you can build your own theme park, which meant there's a lot of UI there. Like how do we handle this many pieces? How do you do like information architecture? How do you do data visualization and things like that? And that was also kind of like the first proper big game that I was on. So it has a lot of good memories. Also, it was on early access, so we had a direct line towards players and giving us feedback, and our player base is so wholesome. They're like the sweetest people. So yeah, definitely one of the better experiences I've had. If I'm going to talk about bad experiences, You'll get a game that you like and then it's cancelled. So I guess that's the bad one. Like I liked it and then we just couldn't release it and then you can't show it to anybody. So that's a bit sucky.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. Well, let's still like focus on the good stuff in the games industry and the good stuff like about your work. What do you say are the I don't know, like are the like current trends in designing like UI or UX in the games? Like, are there any trends that you are really like fond of, or some trends that you really hate?
I think the trend that I do hate is free cursors on console games because it's usually difficult for people who need accessibilities to use a free cursor. Like it's easier to just move around a menu using like up and down and left right buttons. The trends that I do like is just how many new video games care about accessibility. So people are starting to care about making sure that your contrast is right and you can change text and you can turn off QuickTime events or rumble settings, all these things, which I think has always been like a huge extra, and a lot of people just don't want to put the time in because deadlines are tight. We know how video games are, but moving forward, a lot of companies are thinking about it from the start and actually committing some time into it. And I like that. And I hope that we continue to do that and make more games accessible.
Okay, cool. So now let's since you worked on in small teams and in big teams, like what would you say like is if you were interviewing, if you were gathering a team around you, like setting up your own studio or something, and if you were interviewing for your team, like what would you look for in a person, like regarding their portfolio, and like which people do you like to work with, and
okay, so I've been lucky enough to be able to interview for a few people in my past companies. So okay, it's very, very important that you're not a bad person. I know this is such a non-answer, I'm sorry, but it's true though. Like you can always work with someone who is nice. But if somebody is toxic or if somebody is difficult to work with, and by difficult, I mean, you go to work and you get scared and you just like, I don't want to go through the day. I don't want to talk to this person. That kind of feeling, that's really bad. That is literally the thing that is pushing out a lot of talent from the video games industry. So I would rather hire someone who has a trajectory. So what I mean by trajectory is that even though they might not be like amazing right now, let's say their skills is here, but in the future, like we can see that they are willing to learn and they're very enthusiastic and they're passionate, then you can know that their trajectory is going upwards, right? So that is paying back in dividends to me as someone who is hiring you. If you are already proven to be someone who is nice and we can work well with you and you have a good trajectory, that to me sounds like a good grounds for like collaboration and helping you grow as well. But let's say if you're like some hotshot, you're really amazing, but if you're really up your own arse, then like I'm gonna spending way more time trying to mediate between you and other people, and that's wasted time in which I'd rather just be working on the game. So yeah, just don't be a dick. Am I allowed to swear? I'm so sorry. I feel like
it's very fine. As we said, like we're keeping this like very casual, so no worries. And like regarding the portfolio, yes, since you were included in hiring new members of the team, like what is it that you look for in a portfolio? Like for you, actually, could you share some advice on how UI UX designers like could better like structure their portfolio? Like what are the do's and don'ts?
So I think, so again, it depends on what you want. If you are a UI designer and you're getting for a UI job, then I do expect more UI specific stuff in your portfolio. So, I want to see your icons, your actual like past games, or even like your all the different variations of whatever that you've done. Some strong indicator that you can be flexible in style as well. So, if you do like only flat, or can you do a bit more realistic renderings, or can you do different genres in a video game? I think you don't have to fill it up too much. Your portfolio is only as good as your weakest piece, so you need to know how to edit your portfolio. Don't put everything in there. And secondly, if you are a UX designer, it's best you don't have to worry about having something that looks good. That is very much a UI design job. But if you're a UX designer, then I want to see process. I want to see like your thinking, like how did you because with UX design, a final piece is, if it's just a screen, it doesn't tell me much. I kind of want to know what brought you here. Like, what was the problems that you were trying to solve? What was your problem solving tactics? Like, I want to know your methods. And when I talk to you, I want to know how to best utilize you in my team. So for UI designers, I want to see strong graphic design, typography, color theory, all of that good stuff. For UX design, I want to see, how you problem solve, and how would you use data and research to back up your reasons for following this route of problem solving, things like that.
Awesome. Actually, we have like a couple of very interesting questions from the audience. And first of all, like, I gotta tell you that everybody has been like praising this session, and telling you that you should open up a YouTube channel because of how nicely you talk. So
thank you everybody. Am I pink? Because I tend to turn pink in front of the camera when I'm blushing.
No, it's all good. Okay, so one of the questions is, how do you infuse as a UX designer engageability elements in your game? By it, I'm talking about some game design elements that participate to the experience of your game. Example: sounds, music, motions, etc.
You have to repeat that again because I kind of blanked. Sorry.
Oh, you were still thinking about like. Yeah, about starting.
Yeah, I was just thinking like I should start my YouTube channel. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, repeat that again.
Okay, no worries. So, how do you infuse as a UX designer engageability elements in your game? By it, I'm talking about some game design elements that participate to the experience of your game, e.g., sounds, music, motions, etc.
Yeah, that's basically UX design, isn't it? Like, again, you want to approach your game from a holistic point of view. If you remember one part of my talk, I did say about a script, like a user flow script. And this is literally kind of like you scripting what the user would feel at a certain point. So your video game wants to facilitate that, right? That the fitui could be the fitui of literally your game, like the first time they open your game, or the fitui of a certain feature, like the first time a feature is unlocked and you're kind of teaching them how to use this. There's a lot of like visual cues and affordability that you can put into to help that process, because that's basically what good UI UX is, right? Like, it's an enjoyable process, more like an enjoyable experience, kind of like I always say it is in like all of my talks, which is we don't want the users to think about using the UI. Like, don't make me think. You want them to be enjoying the game, and the UI is literally just there to be like, nope, I'm here, oh, you want a tool? I'm here. You want the inventory? I'm here, So yeah, it's kind of setting that script and seeing if the users react based on that. Like, are they actually going down this path that you expect them to? If they don't, if they steer away, that's why user testing is important. If they end up doing something else, or they end up confused, then that's not the experience that you wanted, right? Yeah.
Awesome, cool. Now let's talk a bit about Limit Break. So you're a known advocate for diversity and inclusivity in the industry, and you're the founder of Limit Break, a free mentorship program for game industry workers, for unrepresented genders in the games industry. Could you tell us more about Limit Break? Like what it's and how is it organized, and what are your plans for it in the future?
Yeah. So Limit Break. I started Limit Break like 2 years ago, so it's still quite young. It's a mentorship program aimed at underrepresented genders working in the UK games industry. So we are local to the UK, and we're serving the UK game devs. But for this year, 2021, we are actually in our third year, and we're expecting a bigger amount of people joining us, and it's going to be great because this year see, I get a little bit embarrassed talking about Limit Break because people always think that it's such a professional sleek thing. It's really not. Like, it's held together by sellotape and spit, mine usually, and but this year I'm getting a lot of help. We are banding together with another organization. Well, it's going to be a huge reveal sometime next month. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm waffling, but basically, we are doing bigger things this year. The mentorship usually lasts around 6 months, so we are opening for registration next month in mid-April. Just check back on our website, limitbreak.co.uk, if anybody wants to join. And yeah, I can't. I really want to talk more about it, but I can't. Not yet. We have like a big reveal, and I hope people come back. Like, well, follow us on LD Mentorship on Twitter, and you'll get the notification that we're open, and it's gonna be great because it's gonna be great.
But how do you balance this, like running a mentorship program and your professional work? How do you juggle those two?
With great difficulty. Nah, it's great. Yeah, so Limit Break is not unique in a sense that like a lot of other advocate groups are also run by volunteers. We all have our day jobs. Like video games is, our first and foremost, our passion is what we want to do day to day, and Limit Break is like the thing that I spend my weekends on, or like after work, or before work, or during lunch hour, depending on how busy it is. And it's a lot of time management. One of the things that I've learned to do better is self-care, and by self-care, like, it's a funny word to say because when people say self-care, you think about bubble baths and doing your nails. And my self-care is eating because I get so like laser focused on work and I forget to eat. So it's every so often I'll be like, I'm just gonna order, and that's self-care, sure. And it's tough because when you're doing advocacy work, you want to be careful that you're doing it right. There's a lot of ways that you could do something wrong, or you could say something by mistake, or something that you don't mean to. And I'm constantly learning that. So just because I'm the face of something, or someone else is the face of something, doesn't mean that they're like 100% correct all the time. I make mistakes, people make mistakes, but the best thing about my community is that everyone's really nice. So when I do like fuck something up, they'll be like, hey Anisa, maybe you shouldn't do that, and I'm like, oh, thank you for telling me. And we're like, yeah, friends, yeah.
Who has helped you the most on this like learning path?
Oh, it definitely depends on what I'm learning about. So with advocacy, you could advocate for certain causes, right? So if you are an ally for LGBT causes, then you want to talk more to people who are in that group of people, right? If you want to help people of color or BIPOC, then you want to talk to those people as well. So it's because your identity is just like one like I'm just this. Like I'm Southeast Asian. I'm a cis woman. My experiences is very different from, say, a woman of color from the other side of the globe, you know, or say a trans woman. Completely different experiences. Like I can never know what they're going through, but I can empathize, and I can only say that like I want you to have a good experience while working in the games industry. So I'm going to try my best to help you with that.
And what changes have you seen in the games industry, like since you took up this advocacy work?
It's weird because like Limit Break is only turning 3 this year, but I've never stopped shouting about these things. Like I am, yeah, I think that's the thing. Like I've always been vocal about a lot of things, and it's both good and bad. So the good thing is that it's basically what got me here. Like this being loud and being believing what I believe in has brought me to start what I've started, right? But the bad thing is also like being angry all the time. Sometimes you get really tired. You lose energy, and you need to reserve some of that energy to just to just survive. Like you can't fix the world. Like there's so many issues that there's only so much that you can do, you know? Like my shoulders are tiny. Like I have no upper body strength. I'm like weak, but I put in the effort where I can. And it's a marathon, and there's other people who believe in the same things as you do. You want to find those people, you want to find your tribe, and you want to work together, because a burden shared is a burden halved. That's not the right quote, but it's the same thing.
Well, we get it. Yeah, it's well, actually, that sounds. I think that with this, that you've managed to answer like my actually like last question for you, and it was like, what advice would you give to people thinking about like joining the industry, and who are or maybe like or who are thinking about starting their own initiatives with goal of improving their environment. So it's self-care and share the burden.
Yeah, finding people to help you out. I had a lot of people who helped me with Limit Break when I first started, when it was still like small, 100 people only in London. Even just starting, I shopped around the idea to a few people. I privately messaged other game developers and asked them like, would you be interested in this kind of thing? And they were all like, oh my God, yes, you know. Even in year 2, when the pandemic hit and we had to go online, I had a lot of people helping me out as well, because I was struggling, you know, like we all were. But yet people still found the time to help with like things outside of themselves, and I think that's beautiful. And even in year 3, I have a team now. I have like a Limit Break committee, and we have another committee helping us out, and it's, you know, it's growing bigger and bigger. And people need to start small. That's the thing. Like if you want, like I always say, if you want to start your own thing, definitely 100% do it. You can either join an existing group and say like, hey, I want to help, and how can I help? Like what's your skills? How can you best contribute, right? Because everybody has a skill. Nobody tell me that you can't do shit. Like you have a skill that no one else has. And secondly, if you do want to start something, again, find your tribe, do something small, and target local, like target the people closest to you, target, you know, your local community, your university, your school, your company, because I'm gonna get like Michael Jackson now. Like change starts from the man in the mirror. That was so cheesy.
It's hilarious. It's you. Like stop. We're all enjoying it.
Oh God.
No worries. Yeah, Anisa, thank you again. Like on behalf of all of us, like on behalf of the audience and all of us backstage, for such a delightful session, really like full of laughs, memes, and puns. And also, yeah, we've touched like a lot of like serious topics, but you are talking about it in such a like a humble and supportive way. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and sharing the messages about your work with all of us.
No, thank you for having me. I had this was the best excuse to make a stupid 35-minute long meaningful UI video. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. I really, really enjoyed it.
You're very, very welcome. We have shared all the links about Anisa's work in our Q&A chat. So yeah, make sure to follow her to stay up to date with what she's doing. Yeah, and all the future sessions, all the future talks she will have. And again, thank you all for being with us. We really hope that you enjoyed our talks and that they provided exciting learning opportunities and presented some new experiences for you. Please make sure to join us on the afternoon of 24th of March for the last live event as part of PlayUK 2021. This PlayUK showcase will bring together leading video game creatives, experts, and community leaders from across the Western Balkans and the UK for an afternoon of discussions and talks live from a brand new PlayUK virtual exhibition space. So please stay tuned over the next few weeks when we will be announcing event speakers and sharing the full event schedule. And also after the PlayUK Showcase live event, this virtual exhibition space will also be opened up for folks around the world to visit. Again, thank you for being with us and see you in the next edition of PlayUK. Bye, take care.